Namaskaromi. Welcome back. Now that we've mastered all of the stops and all of the nasals, the sparshas and the anunasikas that are found in the 5 different classes of consonants, the vargas, we can now turn to the 8 leftover sounds that are still there in our consonant chart. These are the 4 semivowels, y, r, l, and w, and then the 3 sibilants, sh, sh, and s, and then finally the letter h. Like with all the other consonants, we can identify the properties that they have and the points of articulation that are there on our chart. And again, this is where this chart functions like a kind of periodic table. Stuff just sort of fits together like in a very fascinating, very powerful way. It's a beautiful thing. Let's start with the semivowels, what are called the antasthas in Sanskrit, because they stand in between. They're antastha. The semivowels, like their name says, they're half vowels. They're not quite vowels, not quite consonants. They correspond to each of the pure vowels, but they function as consonants. So, I corresponds to ya, U corresponds to wa, R corresponds to ra, and L corresponds to la. Don't worry so much about the linkages right now. We'll get to those eventually. But as long as you start knowing the associations, you'll be fine. The basic idea is that you start pronouncing the simple vowel and then pronounce instead, and it turns into a consonant. So I plus ya. It's just like that. As far as pronunciation, it's not too difficult. Ya is straightforward. It's a palatal. It's voiced, not aspirated. There's a vibration in the voice box, no puff of air. Ya. Ra is the second semivowel. It's articulated as a retroflex. This is hard, actually, for Westerners. It can be really hard. It's kind of okay for South Asian speakers most of the time. Or if you've learned Spanish, you can get it very easily, too. The Sanskrit ra is a trill, actually. If you make your tongue trill or vibrate when making the ra. It's not like the English R, but it's like a Spanish ra, maybe. Most of the time you'll be fine. You might exaggerate it to start, right? But eventually you'll get it. It's a retroflex. It's voiced. It's not aspirated. Then the next thing we have is la. It's very easy. It's dental. It's voiced. It's unaspirated. La. And finally we have the letter va. There's some issue about the right way to pronounce va or wa. In the South, actually, it becomes a pure labial, almost a W in English. Wa. In the North, it's pronounced like the English V. Even with the little frication, you can hear va, right? If you can hear the frication, the friction there. That sound is made by the labiodental. The bottom lip touches the top of the teeth and it vibrates a little bit. It's the only time that's used in Sanskrit, and it's in North India, the va. In the central region in Maharashtra, that's where my family is from, generally it can be either W or V. In both cases, there's going to be no friction there, no frication. So no kind of scrapey, vibrating, breathy noise. It can be wa or it can be va, but it can't be va like that. In central or South India, it's wa or wa. In North, it's va. Yara la wa. Right? Palatal, retroflex, dental, labial, semivowels, each corresponding to I, R, L, and U. Now let's turn to the 3 sibilants, the 3 S sounds of Sanskrit. If you learn how to pronounce these properly, everyone in India will be impressed. They'll bow to you, because people in India actually have a lot of difficulty. Even those that are trained in Sanskrit have difficulty with these. They flub them all the time, like all the time. In Bengali, for example, everything becomes sh. In Orissa, often everything becomes sa. So they're going to be impressed if you can pronounce these 3 different S's properly. The first is sh. It's palatal. It's basically the same as the English sh sound. Sh. The second sound is similar, but it's retroflex. It's a retroflex S. Sh. Notice that there's a kind of whistling that takes place because the tongue is going to be back on that alveolar ridge. Sh. If anyone's ever studied Chinese out there, sh in Mandarin is actually the same kind of sound, interestingly enough. Sh, right? Sh. But whatever you do, don't make sure the tongue is touching that back side of the bumpy alveolar ridge, and you'll be fine. sh. And you'll make it different than the palatal where the back of the tongue is making the touch. Sh, right? Sh, sh. Then the final one is a dental sibilant. Everyone should be able to pronounce that with no problem. I imagine sa, right? It's your teeth that are touching each other. The three sibilants are considered to be unvoiced. There's no vibration of the voice box happening, but they are considered to be aspirated since there's a puff of air that comes with each of the S's. Now, the last of our distinct consonants in Sanskrit is the h. The H sound is classified as a velar. It's aspirated for obvious reasons. It's an H, h, right? And the one interesting thing maybe is that it's actually considered in linguistics to be voiced and not unvoiced. So technically, it should be I suppose, where you make your voice box vibrate as well. But that's not a distinction that's actively made. It's really hard to voice it. Actually, I've been trying to, right? Most of the time, you're going to be unvoicing the H. Anyway, with that, we've reached the end of the syllabary. Keep practicing. Learn the chart by heart if you can, because it will come in very handy in the future as you practice sandhi, as we do nouns and verbs and so on. You're definitely going to need that alphabetical order of Sanskrit also to be able to look up words in the dictionary. The vowels are going to come first, then the consonant classes, row by row, then the sibilants, that column, then the semivowel column, then the sibilants vowel, and then followed by the ha. So good luck, study hard, stay tuned. In our next sessions, we'll start going through the script, and then we'll learn sandhi. Woohoo! Right? Thanks for watching. Punarmilamaha. Dhanyavadaha.